there is a giant warning that came out yesterday. Excuse me, a giant warning about a national security threat. It's Russia. Russia. Now, the security threat is a weapon in space. Now, I've heard this story before. It's a space-based weapon system. And Russia apparently has it, and it's a national security threat. It's a destabilizing foreign military capability, and President Joe Biden should declassify all the information about it. Now, sources familiar with the situation says that Russia wants to put a nuclear weapon into space, not to drop a nuclear weapon onto Earth, but rather possibly use it against satellites. It's very concerning, very sensitive. It's a big deal. Wow. Okay, so Stu, who made this? Who broke this news? What's his name?
Mike Turner.
Yeah, Mike Turner. Oh, he's the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, so he would know. He's also a Russia hawk, somebody that is for all the war and the spending against Russia. So, but let's not hold that against him. No.
Well, I mean, it doesn't. My first instinct hearing this yesterday was not that Russia is a good actor or that they are not threatening us with terrible weapons of all sorts. But
sure, they're an enemy.
But the timing of this breaking news seems a little suspicious, considering that we are in the middle of this push for funding that would push back against Russia. And it seems like when you're trying to get $60 billion through, this is a very convenient time to release this information. Again, I'm not downplaying the threat of Russia. I think that it is real. But that still, it's hard to, like, when it first came out, it was like immediate, imminent threat, and everyone's panicking. And then as the leaks continue to come out, okay, they want to put nuclear weapons in space, but they're not in space currently. So it's not like, hey, look up, here comes a missile. They haven't deployed any of this. And also, even if they did deploy it, it would be a threat against our satellites, which again is incredibly serious, but also not what it was pitched at as initially with the urgent release and everyone panicking. I don't know. It seems like the timing of it is a tad suspicious, no?
A little bit. Well, and you think that's because of...
They want to push through $60 billion of funding. And of course, to do that, you need to recognize how big of a threat Russia is.
All right. So let me give you another completely unrelated story, because that was my first thought, and I do think that plays a role. But listen to this. The House of Representatives have delayed a vote on reforming the controversial surveillance tool shortly after lawmakers warned of a national security threat. The chairman of the House Representatives Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence Wednesday published a statement requesting Joe Biden declassify information regarding an unspecified serious national security threat. We're all going to die. Congress had been considering a compromise bill to reform Section 702 of the FISA Act. But now the process has been postponed. Quote, in order to allow Congress more time to reach a consensus on how best to reform FISA and Section 702 while maintaining the integrity of our critical national security programs, the House will consider the reform and reauthorization bill at a later date. The committee has made available to all members of Congress information concerning a very serious national security threat. Wow. Now, here is, let's see. I think this is Christopher Wray. I don't have the name of the person who said this. Boy, stories are written so horribly now. I wouldn't be surprised if this had something to do with the fact that FISA is up for review. Anytime you start talking about FISA reform, the intel community has its way of bringing out the boogeyman. Oh, that's Eli Crane of Arizona. Huh. Now that seems kind of important, because how are things going on the FISA bill? How are people feeling today about the FISA bill? It was supposed to come up next week, and congressmen were ready to unleash the dogs from hell on the FISA bill. But now, because we have a national security threat, I mean, we've got to continue to spy on Americans. You know, if we really want to know what's going on in space with Russia, well, you've got to give me leeway to spy on Americans. Now, is it possible that they're doing this? Yeah, absolutely. Is it possible they're way ahead of us? Of course. Did you hear about the new bombers? These are great. The new B-52H Stratofortress came out recently, and it looks exactly like the one in the 1960s, but it was redone. Well, that's not good enough. We're going to redo the Stratobomber. Now we have B-52Js coming out. So we have planes that are about 80 years old that we are refurbishing so we can fly them. So they're going to have something new called instrument panel. I don't even know how to describe it. Instrument panels now, without all the buttons and the old gauges. It's going to be like you're looking at a glass panel, and they're all behind this glass panel. They're putting those in the 1960 Stratofortress. So the B-52s are going to have that newfangled technology. I think they call it like a computer screen or something. It's very technical. So that's what we're doing. At the same time, the Biden administration has put $1 million into studies aimed at denying there are only two genders. We are more concerned about the two-gender thing than we are about our own security. We are more concerned about equity and inclusion than our national security. God only knows what's happening in the Pentagon now. God only knows what's happening on our border today. But you know what's really important? Did you hear about what happened in Louisville, Texas? Can we just play this real quick so you can see it, Stu? There it is. There it is. That's a male teacher showing up in a pink dress, pink high heels, and a pink hat. And he was ready to teach. So in drag.
How'd that work out?
Well, it's Texas, so I'm hoping not too well. But then again, it's Texas 2024, so who knows? But let's make sure we study this even more. We really need to just pay attention to those things. We need to be on the cutting edge of transitions, of gender mutilation surgery. We have to be on the cutting edge of getting rid of our police and reimagining police work entirely. We've got to be on the cutting edge of this new idea that there are no borders. You know, I don't understand how the big issue with Democrats is Joe Biden's mental capability. It's not his mental capability that has destroyed the country. He's not running this. He's doing an executive order about once a week now. Who's writing that? Because I don't see him going, I got another executive order and we'll put it out here. Writing complex executive orders, coming up with them? No. Who is running our country? We're being destroyed bit by bit.
Not to put too fine a point on it here, but like, are you supposed to wear pink in February? I mean, is that even appropriate? Is that the right tone?
As long as he wasn't wearing white shoes.
Okay.
If he's wearing white shoes, then it would have been a huge fashion faux pas.
Right.
Well, ladies can wear pink.
Okay.
And
even in the
look
winter.
at that picture. Yes. Who looks at that and says, that's anything but a woman?
It's funny because one of the things that keeps happening, the news, you mentioned the news does not write articles that make any sense anymore. I can't even understand what's going on.
I can't.
The Houston megachurch situation that happened while I was out, I was reading a New York Times story about it and had no idea whether an actual man or an actual woman performed the shooting. Because they kept saying woman, but then they said the male pronouns thing in paragraph 12. They eventually got to that after the Palestine thing in paragraph 9. But I couldn't tell if they were saying it was actually a woman or if it was a male who that was identifying as a woman, but they had to call them a woman. And I went through this entire thing. And you know how I figured it out, Glenn? You know how I figured it out if it was a woman or not? I looked at the picture of the person and then immediately knew.
Yeah.
Knew immediately.
Yeah.
It was a woman.
Yeah.
Knew immediately what the situation was because as a rational person with eyes, you can tell almost all the time. So I don't know. It seems like one of those things that if the media was actually honest with us, we would know what was going on in these situations, but they're not.